Competitive Enterprise Institute energy analyst Chris Horner starts us off with all of these developments. Chris, good to see you. I think the president, in his remarks, and for our purposes, I think it makes sense, made this an economic issue, pulling out of the Paris climate deal. So, from your perspective, the economics of it, good or bad for the U.S.?
Pulling out is very good. Now, there are individual companies that obviously were premised upon rents that they would receive from this scheme, not expecting any politician to actually derail the gravy train. So, but on the whole, obviously, if you are removing an impediment to a self-imposed restriction on the most abundant, affordable, reliable energy sources and forcing us onto intermittent, unreliable, expensive ones, obviously that's better for the economy.
How do you quantify that? I mean, is it good energy companies can make a lot more money, essentially, is what you're saying, because of this, or is it just something that we're making too big of a deal of today?
No, it's only good for people who use energy, which is, of course, all of us. And it's a feedstock. It's a major input into an awful lot of what we do. We do still have an awful lot of people in this country who make stuff and dig stuff and build stuff, and it requires energy. The U.S. has a tremendous energy cost advantage, which this sought to erase. That was actually the point. I don't want people to forget. Several years ago, just a very few, the UN official in charge of designing the future economy, believe it or not, Otmar Edenhofer, said this isn't about the environment, has very little to do with the environment. This is about de facto redistributing the world's wealth. And the EU climate minister, Margot Wallström, said it's about leveling the playing field. This was always about removing our cost advantage. Remember, the Europeans have done this to themselves. Other parties are saying if we don't do it, it's unfair. Why are they saying that? Because this was aimed at reducing our energy cost advantage. That's what it was about. That
redistribution argument is exactly the argument the president put forth today. Let me go to Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, on all of this. He was just on the Fox Business Network, and here's what he had to say about the developments of the day, the Treasury Secretary.
I think it makes no sense, and people who quote that, I think, are living in the Stone Ages. We're about creating economic growth, we're about broadening the base, and we're going to make sure that this is tax reform, not just tax cuts, and that they're paid for.
Okay, so then he was talking about tax reform there, and he said about, he talked about the climate deal as well, in terms of this is just, or was a bad deal. In other words, and I think this is what you were getting at a little bit, Chris, this is not necessarily that an administration that's anti-environment, it's an administration that wants a better deal in place. That's what they're arguing.
Please remember, wealthier is healthier, wealthier is cleaner. Go to a rich community, go to a poor country. You know that rich societies pay more to clean up various environmental media. The poorer you are, the more you focus on first-order needs. The richer you are, you measure in the parts per billion, trillion, and quadrillion to regulate. This is about wealth creation, which makes us healthier, greener, and cleaner. Now, you're talking about the Trump, remember the Trump bump and all of the optimism that came with his deregulatory agenda? Much of that is in peril if we stayed in this. We have attorneys general whose documents have been released through FOIA requests showing that they're organizing to enforce this thing. Just because it's not legally binding, as one court recently said in The Hague, doesn't mean you don't have to do it. And we've got courts waiting for this. We've got AGs hoping to use it as a hook. And today the president said, you're going to have to find another hook to stop my deregulatory agenda. Good for him.